Hello everybody, I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today we're talking about the southern border wall that is currently being argued over in the United States Congress, as well as with President Trump, right? So there's the Republican Senate and the Democratic House, and they are not agreeing on anything as far as building a wall or not building a wall to reopen the government. It's now the longest government shutdown in American history at 22 days, I believe. And, you know, it's pretty much the issue right now of just everybody talking about. All the media are going full tilt against the wall, saying it's the dumbest idea that Trump's ever had, and that it won't stop anybody, and that it's immoral, and that it costs too much money, and all these things, and that there's not really a crisis at the border. And, you know, it's just very interesting. This is a topic, I didn't care about the border wall 2 years ago when, during Trump's campaign. You know, it was a big thing for a lot of people who supported Trump, I know, and Trump, you know, was going gung-ho about it. I just didn't really care. You know, this was back when Space Panther and I were still intending to expatriate, to go across the border in the other direction and move out of the United States, with the intention to be permanently. We were going to be immigrants in the other direction. And so, you know, and I enjoy Hispanic culture. You know, obviously we were planning to live in Latin America or South America, so, you know, it's not any prejudice against Hispanic culture and Latin culture that defines, you know, my perspective that I'm bringing forth today. It's, you know, I would love still to live in South America, and we'll see what the cards hold in the future. But the point is that this is not about any, I want racial purity for America. Like, this straw man argument, you've even got these radical leftist, you know, Democratic representatives coming out and saying, Donald Trump wants his racial purity, and that's why he wants the wall. Like, you guys are raving lunatics. Just leftism has taken the place of all rational thought and you know, discourse. It's just this communist line that they just keep repeating and beating the drum. And it's a Disneyland Mickey Mouse delusion to think that basically you can just bring all people of all kinds. Doesn't matter if they're rapists and criminals. Doesn't matter if they're illiterate. Doesn't matter, you know, if they're bringing, you know, if, well, their rectum is full of cocaine and heroin. It's like, oh, just bring them all in. Haven't you heard? Haven't you been to Disneyland? It's a small world after all, and we just need to all get together, and things are just gonna be great. Like, you know, the only problem with that is the entirety of evidence in the course of human history showing the contrary, which is to say that people don't just get along when you introduce multiple disparate demographic groups together, right? What matters is a coherent culture, right? There's plenty of people that can come in, whether they're Hispanic, whether they're African, whether they're Asian, you know, or European or whatnot. But what matters is that they come in and assimilate. They become part of America, right? There's, you know, basically the right-wing position is that people who are coming in should assimilate, right? And some people, you know, favor the restriction of legal immigration as well as illegal immigration. Others are more about just forcing all the illegal immigration to become legal immigration, essentially build the wall, reform the immigration process so that we can force people to immigrate legally, to come in through the front door, right? Not to sneak in through the side window. Right, and that's entirely rational. In fact, it's the same reason why, you know, these same Democratic raving harpies and lunatics, you know, only a few years ago supported the same measures. And, you know, Obama deported almost 1 million illegal immigrants over the course of his 8 years. Nobody cared. Nobody on the left cared at all. Because, you know, he just kept spouting that rosy hot air and people just lapped it up, right? People still think that Obama was a good president because they weren't paying attention at all to anything that happened when he was a president, right? I mean, the real liberals, the actual progressives, you know, I might disagree with them on a lot of things, but they at least were witnessing what was happening and holding Obama to account, or at least trying to. You know, I was one of those people back then. I voted for Obama the first time. You know, I wanted Ron Paul, but I still thought Obama was going to be better than, you know, McCain and Romney, right? But it's, you know, Obama was gung-ho against illegal immigration. I mean, he had the deals about DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. you know, and I personally think that amnesty, it could be one of the cards on the table, right? But the point is, you can't just grant amnesty without the wall, right? You have to fix the underlying structural problem. You have to, and otherwise you're just going to be declaring amnesty over and over and over again, and it's like, it's an entirely moot point. Why even do anything, right? Because you're not solving the structural incentives that cause people to come in illegally, right? And the arguments against the wall are so fallacious and ridiculous. I mean, it just shows how disingenuous the blue team is right now, and how this whole, you know, standing up to Trump has nothing to do with principle, nothing to do with caring about illegal immigrants. It is 100% purely just to make it easier to beat Trump in 2020. If they can stop him from getting the wall, which was one of his main campaign promises, it will definitely affect his chances of getting reelected in 2020. You know, so they supported the wall, now they don't. It has nothing to do with any principles other than they want to stop Trump at any means necessary, right? And of course they like all the, you know, illegals coming up because most of them will vote for the welfare that they're being given, and, you know, continue to vote for more socialism, which of course, you know, will increase the power of the Democratic overlords, and, you know, that's how they work. It's crazy. I mean, the original Democrat Nazi in the White House was Woodrow Wilson. Literally broadcast or screened Birth of a Nation, which was like the movie that reinvigorated the Ku Klux Klan in 1913. He screened it inside the White House screening room, okay? Democratic president, right? All total progressive, right? And then you've got, you know, FDR, who interned hundreds of thousands of Japanese American citizens in World War II, right? You've got Lyndon Baines Johnson saying, "I'll have those." I won't say the word, even though you know, I think it's ridiculous how much people are afraid of the word. But I'll have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. That's what Lyndon Baines Johnson, Democratic president, said after, you know, Kennedy was killed. Of course, Lyndon Johnson had a part in that, as well as many others. But moving aside that, you know, basically, he knew it was a calculated political move. You give free stuff to these people, and they will support you, right? So that's how the destruction of the black family, right, and the creation of a permanent illiterate underclass of people who just consume state services and have no incentive whatsoever to build a real career, to have a stable family with a mother and father in the house married, right? It is completely a modern form of slavery, right? And it's not just a blue team, red team thing, right? You had George Bush Sr., who was bringing up cocaine and heroin through the border and into the streets of America. Of course, the Clintons helped out with that, with Mena, Arkansas, as one of the locations where drugs would come into the country en masse and then go to the rest of the country, right? So it is absolutely, you know, a transnational criminal enterprise that comprises many of the politicians in this country who have, you know, been on both sides of the aisle, including the Clintons, including the Bushes, right? And they are the most evil, degenerate people in the world, you know, to basically, and of course at the same time bringing all the drugs across the border and into the country, and then they institute mandatory minimum sentences. So those who are caught with the drugs get thrown in the slammer, right? And of course, the neighborhoods that a lot of these drugs are going to are, you know, predominantly black and Hispanic neighborhoods. And the gang warfare we see in Chicago, do you think that's, what, they had a game of Parcheesi that didn't go the way that they want, and now they're shooting each other? No, it's a drug war, okay? It's drug territory that they're fighting over, right? So, you know, the bigger question here is the drug war. How do we deal with the cartels? And I agree, that doesn't begin and end with the wall, right? And this is where you really see the disingenuous aspect of the left and of the blue team saying, oh, there's people who overstay their visas and people come in through legal ports of entry, therefore we shouldn't build the wall. Like, this is a huge topic, right? You can't just say, oh, because we can't solve one problem or one part of the problem, we shouldn't solve anything, right? It's all a moot point. Like, that's a total cuck perspective. How weak and pathetic of a person do you have to be to say because we can't solve all the problems immediately, we shouldn't do what we can to solve part of the problem right now? Like, the people who use that type of argument in any facet of life are the most weak and pathetic people of our species. And this is something I witness in my daily life as well as on the macro political sphere. Right? They are so weak and pathetic to say that basically there's no problem, right? They're more interested in protecting the rights of criminal human traffickers coming up across the border than they are about protecting the lives of their fellow American citizens. And that is so sad. That is really sad. These partisan hacks, right, will abandon their own camaraderie for their fellow citizens for, the sake of illegal aliens to score little brownie points in their political crusade against the best president this country's ever had. Right? I'm going to go over some statistics regarding illegal immigration, right? And of course, this will be hate speech. Facts are the new hate speech, says the Democratic Party, but nevertheless, it is the truth. And for those who are actually using their rational brain, these are very, very important, points of data to keep in mind. And of what this $5 billion represents. Of course, $5 billion is not the total wall. It'll be about $20 billion for the total wall. But if you can put up 500 miles of new wall in the most hot zones of crossings, right? I mean, to think that a wall doesn't work, right? You have these people who lock their doors at night, who have security systems, who live in gated communities, right? And they say, oh, physical barrier doesn't work. And it's funny when you got these fat liberals who couldn't jump over a chain link fence if they were being chased by rabid wolves. And they're saying, oh, they'll just bring up a ladder and jump over it. Like, I love when people say that walls don't work. Yeah, 2,500 years ago, the Chinese built 5,500 miles of wall, and it's called the greatest architectural structure that humankind has ever produced, right? But this wall that we're talking about now, that's immoral, and we should never do it because it won't work, right? It only worked for the ancient Chinese, it only worked for Israel, right? It won't work for the United States because the liberals say so. Okay. Government expenditures on illegal immigration. At the federal level, $135 billion per year. Illegal immigration tax contributions, so false social security numbers and whatnot, $19 billion per year. Okay, so if we can, so it's what, a differential of $116 billion, right, of the cost benefit. Let's say 10% of illegal immigration can be stopped by the wall, and that's literally giving a huge credibility to the asinine arguments of the left, saying that it won't be effective at all. Okay, what does that mean in numbers? Let's say 90% of the wall is totally ineffective, but we still reduce it by 10%. 10% of 116 billion, right, is 11.6 billion, right? So we just paid for the wall in 1 year on that basis alone. If we can stop 10% of illegal immigration coming across. Of course, there's still all the people in the United States. That's an entirely separate issue. Whether we do mass deportations or amnesty or, some kind of way. But again, you can't just give amnesty. You can't just even do mass deportations unless you structurally solve the problem of forcing people to come in through the front door and eliminate the open windows and open side doors for people to come in. If you don't fix that problem, it's a moot point trying to deal with all the others. The fact that the left can't see that indicates how disingenuous and stupid they are. In California, illegal immigrants and kids of illegal immigrants are 11% of the population. So no, it's not a crisis, it's just that 1 out of every 10 people in California isn't a legal citizen and is a criminal by virtue of even being here, right? Illegal immigrants cost $25 billion in state and local expenses. Of that, $14.5 billion is for education, $4 billion is for healthcare, $4.5 billion is for justice and law enforcement, $792 million is public assistance, aka welfare, just given to them. $1.6 billion is general government services, right? So we're not going to take care of the homeless in America. We're not going to take care of the American poor. We'll just give things to the illegal immigrants because they matter more than the citizens, right? That makes sense, right? Okay, yeah, sure. And now Gavin Newsom, the new governor of California, is literally taxing Californian citizens and residents to give health care to illegal immigrants, right? Again, to hell with the citizens of this country. We need to take care of illegals and tax the citizens for that. I mean, that's insane. That $25 billion in state and local expenses equates to $2,370 per California household per year, right? So Space Panther and I essentially are responsible for almost $2,500 out of our earnings this year, which is material money to us. That's that could go a long way for us. I'd rather not have to pay that for illegal aliens, right? So, and that's every other California household is responsible for essentially $2,400 in expenses for illegal aliens, right? Oh, it's not a crisis. We're just all bleeding out the pocket, and people are actually bleeding. The cop got shot, Officer Ronald Singh, right? And I used to be very antagonistic against the cops. I've realized over time that there are actual real threats threats that they're defending us from. It's not just about revenue collection and speeding tickets. And you know, it's really sad. Ronald Singh was a legal immigrant, and he came in to pursue the American dream. He had a newborn child, and he will never get to be there for his child now because he pulled over an illegal alien who was driving drunk, had already been caught for driving drunk, and that illegal alien shot him dead. And again, the left cares more about protecting that gangbanger, degenerate piece of shit criminal than it does about protecting the American citizens and the police officers who have to deal with these, you know, degenerate scum. So yeah, 6 out of the 7 least affordable U.S. cities are in California. So again, we're loading more taxes onto us for the sake of people who shouldn't even be here. California already has the highest taxes in the nation. We are neglecting infrastructure in California due to the $1.3 trillion debt load that the state has amassed. So, and again, we're loading more onto that for the sake of people who should not be here, okay? That's ridiculous. The people in California don't matter to the Democratic politicians. They care more about getting more communist, illiterate votes for their big grift systems, and that's what they care about. It's a shame. Federal crime convictions. Illegal immigrants responsible for 22% of all murder. 22% of all murder. There's no crisis, right? It's just 22% of all murders. 18% of all fraud. 33% of all money laundering. 29% of all drug trafficking. So just a third of drug trafficking in the country. It's not a crisis. These guys are just blowing things out of proportion. 72% of all drug possession convictions. 72%. Right, and again, there's a whole other conversation about, you know, ending the drug war and reforming the Controlled Substances Act and eliminating the sources of revenue from the cartels through other means. But again, you can't say that the wall shouldn't be done because there's this and that and visas, blah blah blah. They're different problems. They're different things, and you deal with the ones you can, right? To say we shouldn't do anything because we shouldn't do anything at all because the one thing we can do won't affect the other things is an argument for brain-dead, lobotomized retards, and that's how I feel about it. In 2015, 96% of heroin came through the southern border, 79% originating in Mexico, 17% originating from South America. So when Trump said 90% of the heroin is coming across the southern border, he is absolutely correct. And he's lowballing it a little bit. 96% is the proper number. The rest comes from Southeast Asia through airplanes, right? And and they'll say these lame, pathetic fact checkers. They're not fact checking. They're just putting out propaganda. None of the liberal arguments have any merit these days. They are all propaganda. And if you dive into the numbers, like I inevitably do, you'll find that it's bullshit, right? So yes, 96% of heroin came up through the southern border. And you'll say, oh, it came through legal ports of entry, not, you know, through the in between the ports of entry. And that's not true at all. A huge component of it came in between ports of entry. So wall would prevent 100% of those. And again, force anything that's coming through to come through the ports of entry, right? Then it comes to how do we increase security at the ports of entry, right? Again, a different conversation attached to this conversation, but build the wall. Force everybody to come through the ports of entry and then deal with the problem there. Force a bottleneck and then, you know, have actual security there. They got scanners and stuff now. I mean, they can look into a car. They can look through it. We can stop the stuff that's coming through the ports of entry a lot easier than we can stop the stuff that's coming through in between, right? So, and from 2008 to 2015, border seizures of hard drugs like heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl quadrupled from 400 kilograms to 2,210 kilograms. There's no crisis. You guys are just a bunch of crybabies. 75% of most wanted criminals in LA, Phoenix, and Albuquerque are illegal aliens. 75%. 25% of California inmates at detention facilities are Mexican nationals. And in Arizona, the number is 40%, and in New Mexico, the number is 48%. 53% of investigated burglaries in California, New Mexico, Nevada, Arizona, and Texas are perpetrated by illegal aliens. So half of all the burglaries that are happening along the border states are illegal aliens, right? And 22% of all murder, 29% of all drug trafficking. So if you could effectively deal with the illegal immigration issue through the wall as well as other measures, you'd basically get rid of 1 out of every 5 murders in the United States, 1 out of every 3 drug trafficking instances, and 53% of all burglaries. And they want to say there's no crisis and this is a blown out of proportion issue. These people are pathetic. They are so pathetic to deny the construction of this wall, and oh, he's keeping the government shut down, he's keeping the government shut down. Who gives a damn? Keep it shut down. I mean, for real, this is so much more important than the discretionary spending on some, employees at the FDA researching the effect of American cheese on rats. I mean, this is so important, and I would like to personally thank our president for standing up to these deep state clowns and forcing the issue to a head. And I think that ultimately what will happen is he will declare a national emergency. He will attempt to use funding from the Army Corps of Engineers and the military to build the wall. Of course, as people have pointed out, this will be challenged in the courts. It'll be taken directly to the Ninth Circuit out here in California, the raving communist propaganda machine masquerading as a district court. And but then it'll eventually work its way to the Supreme Court and it will be approved, right? And that'll take some time, and in the meantime there will still be all those drugs, all those human traffickers coming up through the border, and it'll just take a while. It would be better if Congress did it, but of course there's a bunch of communist partisan hacks holding up the process and blaming it on the president. So, I am just completely fed up with this issue. I have no respect for people who poo-poo this thing, And again, 2 years ago, I didn't think this was an issue at all. But I actually believe that this country can be wrangled back onto the right path, and this is a big part of it. We have to establish our territorial integrity, right? And we have to maintain the coherence of our culture, because if we go the multiculturalist route all the way and we just have a big Chinese enclave and a big Mexican illegal immigrant enclave and basically we fracture, right, that's the end of America. That's civil war status and the fragmentation of a once great country. And I would like to see secession on some level. I would like to see California split up and the state of Jefferson come into being, right? But I don't want to see this country go to hell. I don't want it to become a communist hellhole. I don't want Isla to grow up in a country that's filled with a bunch of heroin-addled freaks and, degenerate criminals who are, basically robbing and raping and murdering without any sort of retaliation because of sanctuary city laws, right? These police are actually trying to do their job and protect the citizens, and they are being told no, stop, by their local and state governments here in California and in other liberal enclaves. And that is insanely criminal. These mayors and politicians that are supporting sanctuary city laws, they should be rounded up and arrested. They should even be deported, as far as I'm concerned, because they are treason. They are committing treason. They are traitors, and they are sacrificing their own constituents for the sake of political gain. And that is an unforgivable crime, as far as I'm concerned. I would like to see them all removed from their positions of power and authority. And so yeah, basically that's, I guess on top of that, the human trafficking aspect, they want to say they're caring for the people, right? They're caring for them, right? It's like these are children who are being trafficked, right? We're separating family. Yeah, we're separating families who we can't even verify are families. There are kids being brought up by people who are not their parents, right? These kids are getting sold into sexual slavery. This is human trafficking, guys. I mean, Trump intentionally lowballed the media when he said 1 in 3 women get sexually assaulted or raped on the way up into this country illegally. The number is more like 60 to 80% per Amnesty International and others who have done the research. 60 to 80% of women are getting raped along the way, and they want to say, oh, let's help them. Let's help them come and be one of those 4 out of 5 to get raped along the way, because we're feminists, right? You're a joke. You're a joke. All of you liberals who believe this stupid shit, you're a joke. And that's how I really feel. And, I truly hope that the president will continue in his standing up to these deep state losers and standing up for the rights and interests of the American people. And hopefully we'll get that case to the Supreme Court quick enough, and we'll get that wall built and protect the people of this country, no matter how many lame, cuck communists there are inhabiting it who think that they don't need any protection. Meanwhile, they go back to playing video games inside their, locked little, McMansion house, right, in their gated communities. And, the real people of this country will keep getting the job done and ensuring that we have a secure, peaceful, and prosperous future in this country. So that's my video today. Build that wall, Mr. President. Don't listen to any of the crackpots and losers who are opposing you. Go full steam ahead, because the real people of this country support you, and we're going to get it done. Make America great again, and keep America great, as the slogan for 2020 goes. And that's my video today. If you think that illegal immigrants are more important than American citizens, why don't you go ahead and tell me in the comments below. Give me your delusional propaganda from Rachel Maddow and the rest of the fake news media, and I'll be sure to dismantle it in proper order. As soon as you give me the cue. And that's my video today. Hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.
Ah.